again, I like to fillet them, so I'm going to keep it. Basically, he hit it on a crankbait. He hit it pretty good too. But we have a bunch of walleye here. But I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put it in the live well. Well, I'm going to talk about 5 different techniques that are must-haves on your deck when you're fishing for bass. The first is going to be you need a jig because they're versatile. You can fish them deep, shallow, thick cover, shell beds. Really, I would fish this over anything all the time. It just depends on what the fish is mood in, if it's wanting to chase or it's wanting to have kind of a slow reaction or hit on the fall. But you know, we're not talking about colors or anything, but this is, you need, of course, well, if you're going to talk about color, greens are, you know, pumpkin, watermelon, or for your clear waters. I like to do black and blue for a little bit stained to muddy. But you have to have a jig tied on the 5 different poles, I believe, to be successful on any fishing trip, bass fishing trip. Now moving on to a second pole. You must have a crankbait, some type of diving. It could be lipless, it could be square bill, shallow, deep diver, but you need a setup for a crankbait because a lot of times the fish, they want to chase, they want to run. You got to have it tied on. You have to. Again, the colors are going to vary on your type of water body, but here it seems like later in the summer, as the shad start getting bigger, a little bit more developed, I'll start putting shad colors on. But early spring to early, basically mid-summer, I'll use this crawfish looking crankbait, and I have variations of lipless, square bill, and the round for deeper diving action. But sometimes they want a crankbait, they want some noise, and they want to chase. So you have to have one of these tied on to a pole if you're going to be out, and I believe to be successful in the water. The third pole is you have to have, I like Texas rig over Carolina rig because it's more versatile to me. I like the feel of it better. If I need to go deeper and drag it, I can put half-ounce bullet weight on there. Cover, shallow, deep, docks, whatever situation. I will throw a Carolina. If I'm fishing the lake before, say if I'm on my tube or kayak or something like that and I don't have my fish finder there, I will pull out, basically do a Carolina rig so I can really pick apart the bottom. I can feel the structure. I can feel what's going on in the bottom without having some type of scan available. But I like the Texas rig in most scenarios. It's just the bait that I like, but you need some type of Carolina Texas rig tied on in any circumstance. Now let's go to the 4th pole. I like to have, if say they're hitting the crankbait really good and they're liking that action, I like to use the bladed jig basically, which is the chatterbait, and I usually end up taking the skirts off and I just fish it like this. And this is a Kitech swing impact swim bait, which I really like on this combination. But I always have this tied on, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be a chatterbait, a bladed, something that has action. It could be a spinnerbait as well, something that is basically got some flash to it. So like on your cloudy days, things like that, when it needs a little bit more flash, you can go to this type of setup. But I prefer the chatterbait over. Well, they call it, that's the brand of it. It's the original chatterbait, but it's basically just a bladed jig. And I usually, like I said, I usually take the skirt off of it and fish it with some type of swim bait. I use the Cotec because I really like the action in the water. Only problem is they're kind of pricey and they are really soft material. So a couple strikes and it's going to be done for. And but I really do like it. It's a really good bait, and you need some type of variation of lipless. I mean, chatterbait, spinnerbait, things like that. And then on the last but not least, the fifth setup, I always have it, and I use it on a spinning rod. But basically, I tie a drop shot. And I've been using it today in shallow water. And so that's the reason I don't have much of a leader there. And I use braid, but now I don't ever tie a lead or anything. I just use straight braid, and it doesn't ever have a problem. But and it's more sensitive. But basically, you got your, when it's in the water, you've got your floating worm, your trick worm, and you just lip it in there. But again, there's so many things that you could do with a drop shot to be successful. You can go deep, you can go shallow. The only bad thing about a drop shot is it's hard to fish cover. But now I could do this weedless if I wanted to. I could make it Texas rig, but still you're going to get messed up a little bit because of your weight dragging on the bottom. But it is a very deadly technique. It really is. Especially in clear water, which I have a clear reservoir, water body, and you really can pick apart, you can see quite a distance away and see activity or action, and you could drop it in there and it's a deadly presentation because you don't have to move it. It just sits there. Just keep your pole at a 10 o'clock and kind of you can jiggle it, and it has a lot of action. So drop shot is you need to have in your arsenal on the deck at all times. And basically, depending on the fish's mood, if they're wanting to chase, that's when I'll pull out the crankbait and the swim jig, or the swim bait. And if they're wanting to a little bit slower presentation technique, that's when I'll do the jig and the Texas rig and the drop shot to slow it down. So really, these are 5 things that you need to have tied. But on different situations, I'll only have maybe 1 or 2 poles on the deck where I'm always flipping back and forth to create whatever action that they're wanting. And so, sorry about that. Let's see if we can't catch a few more fish. Today it seems like the jig is working. We caught a walleye, which, wrong type of species, but we caught him on a crankbait. And then we couldn't get a bass to chase a crankbait, so we switched to jig, and we got a small one. So let's see if we can't get a few more to end the video out. It's not a big one, but we caught it with the jig. I saw a little bit of action, so I'll see if we can't pull a couple more out of there. end the video on this guy. Got him out of some thick stuff. Look at his tail. His tail is beat up. See that? Well, we pulled him out of there though. We're going to end it on that.